Andrew Ludington, welcome back to Suit Up the Podcast.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. You're looking sharp as always.
You are as well. I love that you rock really well the light blue shirt. I don't have the confidence to do it as often as I want to because it just gives me from Russia with Love James Bond vibes where Sean Connery has like that nice light blue suit on with his light blue shirt with his dark blue suit and chef's kiss.
I think you're selling it actually. I think you should do that. I sometimes I have a tan suit which I'll rock the light blue shirt with,
Ooh.
as in Mel Gibson in The Year of Living Dangerously.
I've never seen this.
Oh, good, really good film. Um, and very young Mel Gibson
Hmm.
just makes that look great.
I
So,
have to seek this out now because I feel like the 90s Mel Gibson was such a prime, the early Mel Gibson era. I rewatched my favorite movie is Maverick. It's got
oh yeah.
William Goldman's script, directed by Richard Donner. The music's by Randy Newman, and it is Mel Gibson at like peak comedy slash like being the good guy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, just so much fun.
And Year of Living Dangerously is before that.
Okay.
So this was like after Tim and after the first Road Warrior movie.
Okay. So this is like
But
the accelerant is starting here.
exactly, exactly. It's before
Well,
he got the big locks.
pre-Braveheart.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So speaking of history, and I'd say you do a better job being historically accurate than Braveheart, but we are talking Double Shadow, the second Splinter Effect book. I cannot. It's hard for me not to just fanboy over this because you've done such an amazing job creating this world in which chronoarchaeology is a thing. And I love that in Double Shadow, we really just start expanding on the question of if this is possible, what would our world look like to a certain degree? And what are the challenges that arrive? Because you introduce within like the first couple chapters that there is a time traveling serial killer. And it's like, oh, we've opened up this whole new like avenue of tension and problems going on. And it's fascinating. Uh, just first of all, hats off to you. Secondly, how
Thank you.
intentional was the idea of expanding the world with the time travel?
Oh, very much so. So my goal with the series, and it is still intended to be a four-book series. My goal with the series is always to introduce one new major element
Uh-huh.
to the world. So, obviously the first book just sets up the concept of time travel, what that means, etc. This book really sets up the idea of the fact that you can be out of sync with someone in time
Hmm.
and the implications that that brings out.
My mind was blown. I thought it was very like I think that anytime you start playing with time relative to other characters, it's easy to go, "Oh, this is very much Christopher Nolan," which I will say, if I got like my perfect director pairing to a film adaptation of Splinter Effect, it would be Christopher Nolan, just because I feel like that's the interesting thing is that relationship that all of us have with time. I think that on film he's captured it pretty well
Oh
overall.
yeah.
You do that on the page so brilliantly where you have multiple layers because Rabbit meets Helen, but it's a different timeline element of Helen. It's Helen from the past before they've already met in the other book. And so we talk about like layering context and subtext in stories. You have like three different levels of conversation happening with them at once because just with the time split.
It just keeps getting more complicated, but hopefully in a way
Hmm.
that illuminates Rabbit's character
Yes.
and deepens the story. And Christopher Nolan, if you're listening, I'm sure you're not, but if you're listening,
Ardent fan of Suit Podcast.
give me a call.
Again, I thought it was very. This is a huge credit to you as a writer. You are playing with multiple elements that could be confusing in the hands of someone else. You have done a great job of keeping it straightforward, even though you are playing with multiple levels of time, character, and competing emotions. Like it really is well written you can follow it, and it's fun. It is so entertaining, and it keeps your brain teased
Good.
throughout the story.
One of the comment I'd never heard this phrase before, uh, but somebody referred to it as being the pill in the peanut butter. So they said, "Oh, it's so entertaining," and I got to the end and realized, "Oh, I just learned a lot about history." Um,
Yes.
so that it my my goal always with these books is to be accurate, but still, you know, the primary goal is to tell an entertaining story.
Hmm.
I just don't want to tell an entertaining story that's full of awful historical inaccuracies.
Okay, I'm glad you brought this up. I recently read, so I'm a big fan of medieval Europe. No
Hmm.
surprise, Thorn came out. It's dealing with Wars of the Roses, competing family interests, etc., etc. I find that stuff fascinating, and I have read like 5 or 6 books on the dynastic struggles of the English powers.
Hmm.
Then I saw someone post a story that included English dynastic struggle, but then created a whole fake cadet branch of the English of the royal family, and it like the history goes out the window very quickly, and I'm like, hot damn, why did you do that? Like, I get that you want to just tell a story,
Yeah.
but when you're dealing with time, I feel like it's so important, especially when you want to have something historically accurate, keeping the accuracy of that. If you're going to have the trappings, if you're going to play with these are the costumes, please at
Right.
least surface give surface credit to the actual history of it. And I think that you do go beyond the surface and you actually tell this is the story of what's happening at the time. And I think that it just plays so well. I remember watching like this whole thing about like the Gospel of Luke being written back an audio drama when I was a kid. And it
Uh-huh.
takes place largely in the time period the Double Shadow does. And so as you're describing these different competing interests in the Kingdom of Israel, I'm like, oh, I remember the Sicarii. Like this just it was
Yeah.
fascinating because this is a part of history I don't think a lot of people, unless they specifically looked into it, know about. What was the decision to set the past portion of the story there?
Well, so I knew that, of course, in the first book, I set up the notion of the that the MacGuffin is the menorah,
Hmm.
which was great. And I thought, okay, well, that's terrific. It would be nice to bring that thread back in because thematically, it's a really important thread. I think it's
Hmm.
um, the ties between the Jewish community
Hmm.
at in this period of time in Roman history, and how the Jewish community and the Roman community sort of end up merging
Yes.
in a very unique way, in a very adversarial way, but they're really critical to each other. So I wanted to keep it focused on that part of the world, and then of course, you need to have if it's going to be a Rabbit Ward book, he needs to be going after something. So so to have it be the Copper Scroll treasures
Hmm.
was pretty juicy
Is
because
this
it's
a
such a weird
real
mystery.
is this a real thing? Like
It's a
I wasn't
real
familiar
thing.
with it. Okay, please for the audience at home, can you describe what the Copper Scroll treasure is? Because this blew my mind as I was reading. I'm like, if he's made this up, this is brilliant. And if this
No,
is real, oh my
it's
goodness.
absolutely real. There was a scroll discovered, the copper scroll. It's a long scroll in a sheet of copper, a single sheet of copper, where they inscribed with like a little hammers, basically. They dented in um, descriptions of various treasures throughout the Middle East, and they're described in detail. It describes these various numbers of talents of gold or talents of silver that are in these obscure locations that are nobody knows where they are. Um, and it's if it were real, it
Mhm.
would translate to billions of dollars, um, all hidden around that rough vicinity of Jerusalem. And a lot of scholars over time have debated how what's the purpose of this thing? It couldn't really be real. The vastness of the treasure is too unbelievable. Um, but then again, why would you go to all the trouble of creating this
Hmm.
really elaborate and very expensive relic
Yeah.
um, to hide these things? And it does, in fact, at the end, mention a separate scroll that has some sort of key in it to unlock the mystery, basically. So it's this is all historically accurate. You can go look at the scroll now in a museum. I mean, it's just fascinating. And how do I not write about that?
Well, I mean, that's part of what I really love that you can do with chronoarchaeology is history itself is your treasure and you can pick anything. And
Yeah.
it's so cool that you found stuff like the Copper Scroll treasure because again, it becomes a treasure hunt in addition to
Yeah.
like a murder mystery. And it's also got all of the stuff going on just in the periphery, the history of what's happening. I love that in this book, Rabbit feels that tension of people are going to die and he's feeling the slight tension of okay, I've made peace with this, but also how can you ever really feel at peace with just the knowledge I can't do anything about XYZ's death. It's just
Yeah.
it's going to happen in history one way or another, but at the same token I'm still a person and I think it's a nice continuation of his arc from the first book, where he's not just using people to get to a destination. They aren't means to an end, but he's caring more about those people as he goes through it.
hmm Yeah. He is somebody who wrestles on a very regular basis with the fact that, as he says in the first book, these are shadows of people.
Hmm.
He is interacting with people who have real lives, who have real fates, uh, and some of them are very tragic. And he knows he can't really do anything about it. But then again, as long as he doesn't change history, he can do some things about it, but that's always the debate, right? Am I
Hmm.
willing to am I willing to risk my mission
Hmm.
uh, to help someone? And occasionally the lure of helping someone is just too strong, and he feels compelled to do it.
Hmm. There is a scene where Rabbit finds himself trapped in a chute, for lack of a better term, that I have to tell you was some of the most like claustrophobic feeling writing that I have ever read. I felt my skin both crawling and just I literally had to set the book down for a moment, like mid-chapter, and go, okay, I can move my arms. Everything is fine. And that's a huge credit to you as a writer because you really are able to set us in with Rabbit's adventures and in with as these things are happening to him. It also is a little funny that Rabbit gets stuck going through a tunnel because I do think of rabbits and I think of their little warrens and dens.
Yeah, yeah. So Jeff Morse. Shout out to Jeff Morse at Partners in Crime bookstore, brand new bookstore here in Chicago.
Woohoo!
Um, he he DM'd me, and his way of letting me know that he had read The Ark was to DM me and said, "Thanks for introducing a new fear to my arsenal. Um, now I'm afraid of blood tunnels."
It again, it was very well done, very well written, and the scene where he then gets up and all everyone that's like taking because I work in agriculture, so like I'm familiar with that you sometimes use blood as like it put it in the ground and it helps things grow.
Yeah.
Not always depends on all the things, but the horror on the face of the people harvesting this blood to then use for fertilizer, seeing a man stand up, genuinely delightful. And I think that again, that's part of what works really well in the Splinter Effect books are that you balance so many different emotions here, including having good humor. Like
Oh,
you
good.
have the tension rise, you have the oh good, we've done the stuff. And then there's a little tongue-in-cheek humor without ever feeling like, oh, I'm just reading a comedy.
Thank you. That's very nice. Yeah, because I don't want it to be so jaw-clenchingly serious at all
Mm-hmm.
times that it feels ponderous.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are funny and people under stress are funny.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, I I will never make more dumb jokes than when I'm under stress. My wife, if I start making dumb jokes, my wife will say, "What's going on with you? Something wrong?"
It's good
So,
to know that everyone has a tell. And you know what? Now that you say that, I think my wife does the same thing, which I think is humorous. It it does again just make characters more real. And I appreciate that you do that in the story. I want to bring up something that I found interesting as a little thread that you've written so
hmm
far. You have used names like Ward and Fletcher, which are both old professions. Like these are
hmm
archaic names in a lot of senses because they're based on, for those who don't know, a Fletcher was someone that put the little like the at the ends of arrows put the did they just make arrows or did they just add the feathers on the end?
they made
They
arrows,
made arrows.
but the act of fletching is putting on the feathers. You're right.
So these are and ward is very much like a oh you are a someone that guards, protects,
hmm
et cetera. How intentional has been using more archaic-ish names? Because I think that going into choosing names of characters, we talked about Rabbit last time as a name. How much of that is intentional versus just, ooh, this is a cool sounding name?
It's there's a little bit of cool sounding name, but I do like, especially in major characters, a little less so in minor characters, but in major characters, I really like to choose names and especially last names, which aren't going to come up as often,
Hmm.
that have some kind of a resonance about the character. They just give you a little, this feels a little, Charles Dickens, but I like to have a character name that just informs you a little bit about the character in a subtle way. And
Hmm.
so, rarely, if ever, will I do it with an obvious
Hmm.
name. I'm not going to name him, Rabbit the Time Traveler. Um, but I'll go through databases and look at ancient meanings of names, and try to find, okay, well, this name in Old English meant this, or this name in Japanese means this. And
Hmm.
I'll think, yeah, that seems like it's got a adds another layer to that character. So,
I love that. It gives just such a nice little it anchors the character in a certain way. Names mean things. We just
yeah.
had Joe Mel show Mike Simpson. He wrote the last Dungeon Crawler series, Fulgrim
hmm
Firebeard, and I didn't realize he names his like fake assumed name is Franklin Barbarossa III. Well, his name is like Fulgrim Firebeard as his dwarfish name, but then Barbarossa means Redbeard, and I never knew that
Ah,
until he said it. I
Barbarossa
went,
makes sense.
that's actually pretty cool. And
Yeah.
so I like when you can put little Easter eggs like that in the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. And the people who I have singled out for this know it, but there are also some names of very minor characters who I actually I'll just pull from people I know.
That's also fun. Uh,
Yeah.
it again just makes the story more interesting. I think it was Eric Bishop that I chatted with on the show, and he made a comment. He's like, if you needed just a minor character name, why not just use someone you know? Like,
hmm
sorry, your real name. And in theory, it has a good resonance if you're using first name, last name, because someone's already made the decision those two names sound good together. So you
Right.
don't have to go, does this name match with that name?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
because if you when you match them yourself, you're taking a little bit of a gamble.
yeah, I sometimes wonder if that's how parents feel. Like I haven't gotten to the point of having kids yet, but the idea of, oh, you are choosing, I can name a character and I will struggle with it, but at the end of the day, it's fictional. This character
Right.
doesn't have meaning. Poor kids that get named something, if you make the wrong decision, that nickname haunts them the rest of their lives.
Oh yeah, so true. Well, and it's funny because the to this day the name Rabbit Ward is, it's very controversial. Some people hate the name,
Really?
hate it. Yes. There was a reviewer who's really liked the book, spoke very nicely about it, but said like it is unquestionably a terrible name.
Well, I will be the reviewer that says the opposite. I think that it works so perfectly for the character because it has that, I think we talked about last time, it has that sense of like running and movement.
Yeah.
And not only that, there's the wonderful, like, I always have the Alice in Wonderlands association of I'm late, I'm late, I'm late
Hmm.
with Rabbit. And
Yeah.
that just works again so well with the context of the world you've built.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have chosen a name that was so outside of, sort of normal parlance
Mm-hmm.
if I hadn't seen it on a gravestone
Mm-hmm.
and known, oh, there was actually somebody named Rabbit. Somebody named their kid Rabbit. So,
Gen Zs today feel so much better now.
right? Yeah.
Okay, so like that, I that's another thing. Like you make a comment in the book that he's named called Rabbit because his
Yeah.
brother couldn't say Robert,
Yeah.
and I appreciated that that's such a real thing because I gave my little brother a nickname because I couldn't say his name. It's a very real thing, especially with siblings. And I
Hmm.
do like that you hint more at Rabbit's like actual life outside of work at this point in the story, where you mention his parents, you mention some of his backstory. I think if I remember right, you said he came from Michigan,
Hmm.
which again, as a Midwesterner, I'm like, yes, finally people remember. It's always nice when we talk and I don't have to come up with new time zones. Like just the Midwest exists. And I think that it's interesting to see it because it also has, this is a slight absurd tangent, but it reminds me of The Great Gatsby in some ways, where
Okay.
we most of the major characters in The Great Gatsby came from the Midwest and are then in other places. And I think that that's a factor that happens in a lot of stories that often doesn't come up or is addressed. And I like that that's a small thread in Rabbit's tapestry.
Yeah, and I figured I'd bring it up because in the first book he is wearing a Detroit Tigers t-shirt at some point.
Love it.
So,
Actually, I have a question about the title for Double Shadow. Correct
hmm.
me if I'm wrong. I thought I remembered reading on a blog post when I was doing research for the last interview that there was a different title you were originally going to use. Is
You
that
are
true? And
correct.
okay, so do you mind explaining what went into that change? Because I do find it fascinating because titles, in my opinion, are always so tough with books. Naming
Oh,
characters, whatever. Titles for a book, it's like, oh dear goodness, what do I do?
yeah. I am not a fan of writing titles. I don't like it. I find it stressful. Um, it was originally titled Herod's Triangle,
Hmm.
which is named after a particular geometric pattern that was
Ooh.
used on the floor tiles of the in the temple,
Hmm.
the temple in Jerusalem. Other places too, but you know, there it was used as a stylistic choice. And I thought, oh, that's kind of fun, and it's got the hints at the triangle between Rabbit, Helen, and Einar Eshek in the
Hmm.
book. Great, so I like that. Um, and then, my publisher said, we don't like the title.
Mm.
Um, and interestingly, what they said was they felt that it read to historical fiction.
Mm.
Um, and that's which kind of comes back around to, you know, where does this book fit on the shelf?
Yes.
Which is tricky. It's
Hmm.
tricky. And, it is historical fiction, but not really. And it
Hmm.
is science fiction. I mean, I, I'm, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I got the amazing news that Splinter Effect was up for best debut science fiction novel from the Compton Crook Award.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Um, so that was really exciting to hear. It's one of the finalists, I think 5 or 6 finalists. Haven't heard yet. So
Awesome.
it's still in the exciting finalist state. Um, so it is science fiction. It is historical fiction. It is a mystery. It is a thriller. It's all of those things. Um, but that's tricky. And I've seen it
Hmm.
shelved in all different locations in bookstores.
Hmm. Which
So,
I think is both a blessing and a curse here, just because
yep.
uh, we just had Beau Lamore on the show.
Uh-huh.
He's the son of Louis L'Amour. They've got a new thriller coming out this year. But just talking with him, I didn't realize there was a point where all books were like not categorized by genre at bookstores. It just blew my mind because I've only ever known it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating because it these are the types of books I love, where the genre is not necessarily, oh, it's this and this alone. It has these flavors and tastes of other things because it's also a treasure hunt. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think you give Clive Cussler a run for his money on writing great adventure stories where you're searching for a treasure. Like, I'm working on a list right now of top 5 books to read if you like Indiana Jones. Splinter Effect is like number 2 or 3 on that list just because it is such a great adventure. It's a great, if you like looking for lost treasure, you need to read Splinter Effect.
Thank you. Thank you. But you're right. It is a blessing and a curse. I mean, it's a curse that what list should it appear on?
Yeah.
How do you categorize? And some people are very, very specific in the things that they
Mm-hmm.
like and like to
Mm-hmm.
read, and they don't really want to go outside of that zone. And I can understand that. Um, but it makes it tricky when you say, "Oh, what do you like? You like this particular type of science fiction." Okay, well, you might not like all the history.
Which that's fair because I'm a guy that likes history. Therefore, I read Splinter Effect. I'm like, oh, it's history with a taste of sci-fi. It's amazing. And to that point, I think this is where the internet helps with online book sales more
Hmm.
because whereas bookstores, it's binary. It's in this spot or it's not in this spot.
Right.
Whereas the internet, you can literally tag and tie and just relationship web so much more that
Hmm.
there are so many different connections that the Splinter Effect series can take and Double Shadow can take when someone's browsing online.
Here's hoping. Um, yeah, and because I have the opportunity to do this over several books, I can also explore some of the concepts and ramifications of time travel,
Hmm.
albeit subtly.
Hmm.
It's not the top element in the book. But you know, I've had to learn a lot about quantum physics. Um, and because I really wanted to make sure that I set up a set of rules
Hmm.
and that they were internally consistent.
Hmm. Have
Um,
you created like a spreadsheet or a Word doc of these are the rules of time travel so that you
oh
make sure
yeah,
you don't violate them?
yeah, yeah. I've got all of my rules of time travel. Make sure I don't violate them, and I make sure that through my outlines of book four that there's
Oh.
nothing in any of that in any of my logic that is internally inconsistent.
Hmm.
So if anybody out there says, nah, you've got a paradox in here, just wait till the end of the series.
I'm so excited. You're talking about outlining book 4, and that just makes me so excited because again, I feel like this series is one of the most refreshing that I've read in ages. And knowing that we have these books to look forward to is one of those like I have the set points in the horizon line that I'm like, okay, whatever else happens short of a nuclear holocaust, I will see Splinter Effect book 3 and 4 over the next 3 to 4 years. Yes.
Yep. Yep. You can count on the next two books, which is great. I'm really looking forward to writing them. And because I felt like, I do have uh I've had my head in this time travel quandary for a while. I took a break and I wrote a completely disconnected book um
Ooh.
that I am working on with my agents right now. So you may see that pop up in the middle as well.
That's exciting. Again, I think that you write excellent prose, good
Oh, thank you.
characters, and entertaining stories. And admittedly, that's another thing with the cross genre that I think is in your favor. Instead of being shelved into this is only what Andrew writes, because you can prove that you write multiple different elements, you can kind of write what you want. In theory, obviously, the agents in the marketplace always have their opinions, but
Of course.
as a reader, have full confidence that Andrew Ludington can deliver an entertaining story with solid characters because I know he knows how to write a good and entertaining story.
Well, thank you.
You also announced something recently that I was very excited about. On your newsletter, you're going to be doing a serialized story.
Yes.
I find
Yeah.
this fascinating. Please tell me what went into it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, so I was it takes a long time to write a novel,
Yes.
and it takes a lot longer to get that novel into print form and in people's hands. And so I thought, it might be kind of fun to just write something that I can write on the fly and release it for people who, would just enjoy an entertaining story that just pops up in their email on a regular basis. So it's going to be a free novella
Hmm.
that I'm going to write in short one chapter increments and release to subscribers. I think the first chapter is going to remain up on the website,
Hmm.
and then subsequent ones will get delivered to people's inbox, whoever subscribes. Um, Once it's complete, maybe I'll get it published. We'll see.
Hmm.
But in the meantime, I'm not so concerned about that. I just want to write this fun story.
I love the idea. Serialized storytelling, I think, is one of the most underrated tools that we just still don't have like awesome delivery systems for today, even though we have all of these methods of broadcasting information online.
Yeah.
The There just hasn't been a great mechanism. I love doing it through your email list because that's a good mechanism for get your installment of the story. Whereas, like, I think Kindle tried doing Kindle Vella at one point to like do serial
Right.
stories, and it just like crashed and burned.
Yeah.
So I love that you're doing it this way. Serialized storytelling just has so many fun avenues. Most of my favorite books, I say most being like Count Monte Cristo and basically
Oh
anything
yeah.
written by Dumas was serialized. And a
Yeah.
lot of the classic books we think of today didn't necessarily make their money in print so much as serialization through the magazines back in the day. So I
Hmm.
love that it's a just a tool in the writer's tool belt that just doesn't get to be used that often anymore.
Yeah. It should be a lot of fun. And I've got a basic idea of where the story's going, but I'm not treating it the way I would writing a novel.
Okay.
I've got the rough spine of where this
Mm-hmm.
story's going, but I'm also kind of finding the story as I go. So it's a little more exploratory as I'm writing it.
Mm-hmm.
Once I've written it and released it, I have now committed to whatever story point I just put in, and I've got to continue down that path. Um, so it's got a little bit more of an improv feel to it, which is fun
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that the email tools that are available now, where you can set up a sequence of emails for subscribers to receive are so
Yes.
great for this because it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter when you sign up. If you sign up, you'll get all of the story in order.
That's a great way
Yeah.
of
So you're not going to
doing
miss,
it.
you're not going to miss
Yeah.
episodes 3 through 6 if you
Hmm.
waited to sign up.
They're not gonna jump in and go, is this like a Star Wars thing? We start with episode 4 and work our way.
Exactly. Exactly.
I kind of forget about that we have those sequencing stuff because I remember
Yeah.
like in the early 2000s when I first like looked at Mailchimp. Now, granted, at this point I'm like 13 years old. I don't know what I'm trying to do, but I'm like, "Oh, I need to build an email list." Like every 13-year-old thought, and I'm like, "Oh, Mailchimp lets me do X, Y, and Z and I can click the button and I could schedule it out like through a week, a month in advance." So
Uh-huh.
cool. Now you can set up all of these different like complex chains and decision
Yeah.
trees that go into it.
Yeah. And it's perfect for this kind of thing.
Hmm.
Because I debated using, uh, and now I can't even think of the name of it. Very popular,
Substack.
thank you, Substack. Debated using Substack and eventually thought, yeah, Substack's got a lot of really positive things about it. Um, but I'm not sure it's really going to give me that personalized feel that I want for this. So I decided to just go with the email list.
The best thing I got on Substack this year, the best thing I could say for it is it's a better version of Blogger, which,
Uh-huh.
and the email suite is nice to use, but it doesn't give you very many tools. So like you can't
Okay.
schedule things out through like, oh, sign up for the list and then you get things in subsequent order. It's just a really nice blog form is really that can send emails. So
Yeah.
shocker that the internet figured that one out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, which is great. And I
Hmm.
think people are using it really well.
Hmm.
I mean, probably most notably, George Saunders is incredibly both prolific and successful with his Substack. Um, but yeah, I wanted to take this in a very personal kind of
Hmm.
intimate group setting,
Yeah.
which made the email seem appealing.
I'm very excited for it. Like I said, I was sitting on the couch. Email came through and I went, "Ooh, this is gonna be good. I'm excited."
And it's different. It's definitely a different kind of story.
So I'm curious, do you have like because like the other day I made a comment about, oh, a spy thriller would be fun to write. I have like these are my core genres that I want to write a murder mystery, I want to write a spy thriller. I just want to dabble in the different playgrounds. Do
Yeah.
you have like these are my favorite genres that I'd love to write in, or is it more just I have the inklings of this story and this story might affect these different genre types?
I mean, I'd say certainly I have genres that I'm more interested in exploring than others. Um, but I do tend to start with, okay, well, here's the hook of the story.
Hmm.
Um, what does that feel like? Um, and there's some genres that I love reading that I don't think I'll probably ever write.
Mm.
I'm not sure I'm really a horror novelist. I like some horror books.
Hmm.
I love a good horror novel, but I don't know that I'm really ever going to write one. But sci-fi, fantasy, thriller, mystery, those
Hmm.
all feel very much in my wheelhouse and things
Hmm.
I'd like to explore more of. Um, every once in a while, I get this inkling to, if you ever read Armistead Maupin's Tales of the City, serialized, and it's just, it was sort of like 70s San Francisco Friends.
No. Ooh.
It's just about a group of people living in San Francisco in the 70s and their sort of interwoven lives. And they're very entertaining. And I've occasionally thought, oh, I might like to try something like that too. Again, that might be probably something more for my list and less
Hmm.
for publication,
Hmm.
but who knows?
Is there a city that you'd use for that? Would it be Chicago?
I've spent most of my life in Chicago, so probably Chicago. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it is a great place for it.
Yeah.
I've mentioned it as nauseum, but it doesn't isn't usually the set piece for a lot of stories, surprisingly, even though it has this fascinating like deco appeal to it that feels
Hmm.
timeless in a lot of different parts of the city. But that's
Well,
that's my biased opinion.
I think you're right. And it's a great city to live in. Um, and it seems to be when featured, it is most often featured in crime stories.
Shocking.
I know. It is actually shocking to me
Yes.
because like the Chicago I know,
Hmm.
like, I you know, I do not view a very dangerous view of Chicago. Most of Chicago is just a great, cosmopolitan city.
Hmm. And genuinely, like as someone who has grown up nearish Chicago, it really is confined to there's the neighborhoods you know to avoid, but most of Chicago is a genuinely nice, enjoyable, much nicer than New York Traffic's just as bad, but in my
Yeah.
opinion, much nicer than walking down New York.
Now I do like, I'm not going to knock New York. I like New York, but any large city has that feel to it that it kind of has its
Hmm.
own life.
Yes.
You know, it's got these layers, it's got an
Hmm.
underworld, literally an
Literally.
underground city beneath the city, all of these hidden spots that you can find. It's great.
My wife and I went to Paris for our honeymoon last
Hmm.
October. And one of the main thoughts I had leaving it was I preferred Paris over New York for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
But what was fascinating to me was simply how the city's like history is literally feels like it's in layers, where depending on where you go, you see that part. And in like it made me think of Chicago in that Chicago has had that a couple of different fires that have gone through in different parts that have
Right.
literally caused Chicago to have to be rebuilt. And that's why you have certain areas that have a very 1920s feel because the skyscrapers and buildings were literally put up at that point and have not changed
Hmm.
because it was as the city is constantly being rebirthed. And to your credit, I think that this is something that you have done really well in the cities you featured in the Splinter Effect books. Double Shadow, we get Jerusalem in its various forms, and we get to see that Jerusalem has these different stratas of where people
Yeah.
live, and just that it is a city that has had so much happen. You have this great moment where Rabbit is seeing the temple, and he's just like, oh, I'm really appreciating the architecture went into this because I think Helen makes a comment about, aren't you appreciating this enough or something like that?
Hmm.
And it is fun to see that because I feel like we can do the same things just in the towns we live in or the big cities we visit,
Right.
where it's easy to take for granted this is what it is without seeing these layers of history that have created it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there have been these archaeological digs underneath Jerusalem for decades. But recently they have uncovered things that are spectacular. I mean, like city streets that are still there, just underground, under the city, because as the city was raised several times, it things just built up a layer of accretion on top of that, and the new city was built on top of it. But there's still parts of those old cities underneath, which is so cool. I wanted to include more of that, but you can only include so much in a book. So,
I'm curious, is there like a nerdy fact like that that you were like that just barely missed being in the story?
one, yeah, there were many points that I wanted to include, and may have included in early drafts that
Hmm.
had to get cut out. The I really wanted him to at some point visit the Herod's palace,
Ooh.
because
Hmm.
Herod's palace was this spectacular structure on the other side of the walled city from the temple.
Was it listed as one of the wonders of the world? I'm trying to remember because I thought that it was
Mm,
listed as something significant, like of lost antiquity at this point.
it's certainly noteworthy. It's not what it was never one of the wonders of the
Okay.
world, but spectacular structure. And I wrote a whole section in the palace just because I wanted to include it. And then realized, okay, all right, this is not moving the story forward in the way that it needs to. So it had to get cut. But there were a lot of things like that.
Hmm. That a book is much like an archaeological expedition where there are so many
Yeah,
different layers that eventually have to get pulled and tucked to eventually get the what we eventually see.
so true.
Andrew, this has been a delightful conversation. I'm really excited for Double Shadow and all the forthcoming projects you have. Where can people go to learn more about you and your work?
You can learn about me and my work at andrewludington.com. Also, in the next, I don't know when this will come out, but it's the first iteration of that serial story will come out on my website in the next week or so.
Awesome. I'm excited. And Double Shadow, where can people get their copy? Because I believe
Double Shadow.
today as of release, it comes out on Tuesday in just a couple of days here.
That's right. That's right. Well, it's so it's April 21st
Hmm.
is when it arrives, and should be available. Ask your local bookstore if you don't see it on the shelves. I'm happy to say that Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review, so I'm hoping
Awesome.
that some books, it will raise
Hmm.
its attention. It's hard to get attention in a crowded world of publishing. So, hoping that gets it a little more attention, but ask your local library. Obviously, you can find it in any of the online booksellers. Um, Splinter Effect is also out now in Arabic, which is
Ooh,
fun.
that
Um,
is cool.
yeah, yeah. So that's a kind of a cool little bit of trivia. You can find that.
Awesome. I will link all of that in the show notes. Andrew, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks so much. Great to talk to you as always.